Welcome. Thank you for lending an ear to the Voice of the Times for Wednesday, March 2, 2022. Brought to you by Wilkin Depot, the country's leading home improvement and construction supplies retailer. Shop conveniently 24/7 with the Wilkin online store. Just go to shop.wilkin.com.ph. For today's editorial, Prospective candidates cannot ignore the climate. The most concerning thing about last Sunday's presidential debate organized by CNN was something that was not said by the 9 candidates present. A wide range of relevant topics was discussed, but virtually nothing about the environment and climate change. This omission was a disservice to the public, as the topic is perhaps the most important broad issue the next administration will face. The blame for this should fall on the debate organizers and expert panel posing the questions to the candidates, rather than on the candidates themselves. Even though none of the candidates, including the one who declined to participate, has yet to present anything that even remotely resembles a coherent and actionable environment policy, all of them have acknowledged the topic on a number of occasions and offered various suggestions of specific areas they might pursue if elected. Not encouraging the candidates to elaborate further was a missed opportunity, but the debate did cover a great deal of other matters of interest to voters. So the best thing to do at this point would be to make a positive contribution to the public conversation by filling in what was missed. Climate response in its 2 forms, climate adaptation and climate mitigation, has become, whether some stubborn climate skeptics like it or not, a key part of virtually every aspect of overall national policy. Even if an incoming administration does not consider climate response a top priority for its own sake, every other policy area, government finance, infrastructure, agriculture, social development, calamity readiness and response, and everything in between is significantly affected by it. As just one familiar example, investments in coal power are now being shunned for their environmental unsustainability by most public sectors and even many private sector funds. The Philippines' near-term energy growth plan still relies primarily on the expected construction of more than a dozen coal plants, facilities for which funding, if already secured, is likely to be more expensive than anticipated, and in some cases, perhaps not available at all. The Philippines' environmental policy, we believe, should have 3 basic objectives. First, the country should fully adopt the principles of just transition in ensuring energy security. That means, in simple terms, finding the best formula of energy that is reliable, has an environmental footprint that is as minimized as it possibly can be treated from the country's own resources, and is accessible and affordable for all Filipinos. It is important to note that just transition applies to all aspects of development, such as expanding transportation and making it more sustainable, and expanding agricultural productivity. Progress is important and is in fact a necessity, but no solution is worthwhile if someone is left behind. Second, the country must focus on pollution reduction. Harmful emissions primarily from transportation on the one hand and other forms of land and sea pollution, most particularly plastic pollution, on the other. There are 2 reasons for this. First, it is an obvious quality of life issue. Reducing emissions, for instance, reduces incidence of respiratory ailments and their corresponding burden on the health system. Second, there is a clear risk-reward formula in pollution reduction. If the Philippines is making an appropriate effort to manage its own contribution to global emissions and pollution, it is entitled to and can demand support for its climate adaptation and mitigation efforts from nations with far larger contributions to the global problem. If the Philippines does not do what its capacity allows, however, it stands to be penalized for not doing its part, no matter how small that part may be in the bigger scheme of things. Finally, the third objective must be to prioritize ecological and environmental preservation in any development activity. Again, this is partly a quality of life issue. The Philippines has a unique environment and one that also happens to be a substantial source of income by simply existing, thanks to the tourism sector. Another reason is purely practical. Conservation efforts also serve to address climate mitigation needs without requiring additional programs or resources. Restoring natural mangrove forests that protect coasts against storms and act as natural carbon dioxide collectors is one well-known example. And that's the editorial for March 2, 2022. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print. Subscribe to its digital edition or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and listen to the voice of the times.